Hey guys, welcome back to another track guide on the Coach Dave Academy YouTube channel. I'm Bard and I'll be taking you for a lap today around Suzuka in the Dallara F3 car. I think that's fine. So here we are at Suzuka coming across the line. Fairly long straight here. Pretty good overtaking spot as well. One of my personal favorite tracks as well. So looking forward to this one. Uh, for the first corner, just the first two turns make one corner. So really, when you're setting up for the entry for this first turn here, you want to stay really wide and you want to really use the camber on the inside and make sure you use the inside white line. But really, your focus is to have your slowest point here. It's third gear corner. Where the braking is alongside the inside curve on the white line. So once you get down into the camber, that's where you'll do your braking. And you'll see it's quite a soft brake. So just managing the lock as we're braking through there because there's so much lateral load, we can't really use much of the brake. Otherwise, we'll start locking up, and then you'll run wide, and it'll lose you quite a lot of time around here. So it's important not to brake too hard and just manage the brake pressure. It's quite soft, long, gradual braking zone. Yeah, so using the camber, carrying a lot of speed, and quite an early throttle pickup here, so we can carry good minimum speed. And again, just getting right into the white line using the camber, ideally not hitting the inside curb, and then just running out to the edge of the track. Now, important here to get back to the right-hand side of the track. We don't have a very big distance between turn 2 and turn 3, so it's important to get back before the next corner. And then this is almost flat. It's flat on the entry, and then you can see I do a very small part lift here. And for this whole section, it's a case of you lift a bit to get more front grip. So if you want a bit more front and you feel like it's pushing, you need to lift out a bit to help the front turn in. So for here, we're flat, 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 and then we just lift a little bit because we feel like, I feel like I need a little bit more front grip through this part of the corner. And you don't really want to be taking too much curb here either because it will unsell the car, but we do want to be tight into the white line and stay next to the curb at the end of the left as well to open up the right. So here we are, we open up the right and you can see I lift out down to almost no throttle. Ideally, you can trail a little bit, but you need to have that lift because that's what's going to pitch the car and help it turn in when you steer to the right. So lifting out and then just gradually back on the throttle, carrying good speed here. We don't need to look for our exit all the way on that left-hand side, because if we stay on the left-hand white line, we're compromising our entry to this next bit. This is all about carrying speed, this section. So just maintaining that minimum speed. And I like to lift out here because I find it's quite important to stay next to this curb. If you hit the curb, you'll bounce off it and you'll move a little bit wide. So if you can get as close to the curb as possible, it's quite a good run on this lap. And you just lift out to help the front turn in a bit, and then you get up the throttle when you feel like you've really got into the groove there. And then for this section, again, we don't want to be all the way on the right. We want to be about here. We want to be mid-track. Not all the way to the left either, because then we're giving ourselves too much work and we have to compromise too much to get back there. So here we are in the middle of the track, just lifting out gently, and downshifting into third here will help the car turn in. And this is the most important part of the section, probably the hardest part, is when we're going around this corner, I'm looking for where we're going to turn in for the next left-hander Dunlop. So where we are here, for this part of the track here, you can see there's kind of the edge of the rubber line in that part of the track. That is where you want to be looking from about this far around. It helps if you have triple screens, obviously, otherwise it's a little bit tricky on this one, or VR. Yeah, it's important to look really, really far around the corner so we can see that turn-in point, because that's our marker for where we're going to be able to start picking up the throttle here, as we want to make sure the last left-hander is flat or very close to flat. So yeah, picking up the throttle in third gear, it's going to be pretty quick throttle pickup for this section, then flat out. And you can see I do a very small part lift there. That's just to balance it, because I feel like I wasn't going to quite make, I was going to run off the track if I kept it flat. So it's a bit of maybe a safety lift there. But it is important to note that when we've reached this point, we need to have quite a direct turn in. And again, use all the track here, but don't hit the curb, because that will cause the car to get unsettled and move offline. And then again, just using all the track, full throttle, being really smooth. And if this is too easy to take flat and you don't have to use all the track and the car doesn't run itself out wide, then that means you haven't pushed the previous corner, the previous right-hander enough. You haven't gotten the throttle early enough there, and you're going to be down on speed in this section. So that's what makes it so tricky, is you're constantly on the limit here, because the easier this becomes, maybe with more grip or lighter fuel, or you're running more downforce or something, then you need to push the previous right-hander as well, and just keep this as close to being as flat as possible, but not so easy. So this is easy flat left. We just want to reduce the distance down the white line on the left-hand side. Then looking into the two Degners now, the reference is very clearly the 50-meter board here on the left is where I brake and start that entry phase at turning into the corner. It's a soft brake here, because we're not really trying to slow the car down too much. We want to carry a lot of speed. I hold fifth gear through this corner, so it is important to carry speed through this first Degner, because there's not really any exit, so your exit's not that important. It's just about carrying as much speed in as possible and using the aero in this Formula 3 car. So it's only really a small brake just to get the front turned in. And then here we just want to nibble the inside curve. If you take too much here, you will bounce off and go wide, and that's really bad here, because you'll bottom out on the exit of this and the next corner as well. So it's important that we don't hit the inside curve and take too much of it. It'll unsell the car. You can see if we go to a different camera here, I just clipped the inside curve, and that's super important with this car, to just not get unsettled through this section, but still carry good speed. So here, to make sure we don't bottom out on this exit, which will happen if you put the middle of the car on the left-hand side of the red and white curbing, so your left wheels are on the Astro, you will bottom out, and worst case scenario, you lose a bit of time. Best case scenario, you can manage to get it back. And, sometimes also you find yourself just crashing as well. It's quite hard to keep control of the car there. But generally, it's a big risk for this corner if you take the inside curb or push it too much. So the way we're going to avoid making mistakes here is we're going to spot our exit at this point. We're going to look for the red and white curving on the exit. And as long as we're aware of where that is, we can pick up the throttle and we can be confident, when we pick up the throttle that we're going to have reached the edge of the red and white curve and we're not looking for the green AstroTurf. So we're aware of where our exit's going to come. So very similar for Degner 2, just a bit slower. So braking down to third gear. Again, nibble the inside curb. Don't take more of... I would never take more than this because you will find yourself bouncing off it and understeering. And then you're bottoming out on the exit. And then same as the previous corner, you need to look up to your exit quite early here. It's super important to use the edge of the red and white as your absolute limit. We want to use the red and white curbing, but we don't want to use this green because if our left wheels are over here, there's a lip on the edge of this red and white and we'll bottom out and we'll lose time, possibly damage the floor as well. So we want to avoid that at all costs in the races. Up the hill now, this little right kink isn't really a corner. However, if you turn early here, you will get punished into the hairpin. So it's really important to turn in quite late and gradually and softly and meet the white line here on the end of the corner next to the curb. And so we're dead straight for the hairpin. So just being aware, don't turn in too early there. Okay, now we want to be parallel with the white line on the entry here. Braking as efficiently as possible at the start of the braking zone. But then once we reach this point and the track kind of cambers in, we're going to bleed out and change into first gear and use this camber. So parallel with the white line, bleed out, use the camber. And then it's at this point that we want to start looking for our exit, picking up the throttle, and make sure it's really important to get steering out quite quickly in this car. If you leave a bit of steering on, you're going to have a snap, maybe spin in first gear. So it's really important to get that steering lock out when you do get on the throttle. And we can use the exit curve, but again, we don't want to use all of it because you will bounce on the exit and lose a bit of time or end up on the grass and things like that. A good reference for this corner is if you find yourself too close to the white line, I was probably on the limit here because I was riding a bit of the curb. If you find yourself too tight to the inside, it generally means you can brake a little bit later. So, push your braking back a meter or two and you'll find you won't be so tight on the inside. The other thing as well is if you're picking up the throttle too early here and losing the rear, that's also a good sign that you've slowed the car down too much in the middle of the corner and you need to roll more speed in this phase and just bleed out a bit faster. So those are quite important because you do lose a lot of time if you don't attack the hairpin correctly. This long right, we just want to reduce the distance and be really smooth. Don't scrub the tires and just reduce the distance, sit on the right-hand side. Don't run out to the left. Hold the car to the right into spoon curve. And for the first part, it's just a quick brake down to fourth. And the first part is really just about carrying a lot of speed in. You want to carry as much speed as possible in without ending up on this right curb. You can sometimes take it and get away with it a bit like the first Degner, but generally I find it super inconsistent and it'll unsettle the car. So we want to get as close to that curve as possible without really using it because it's really bad when we brake again for the second part of spoon curve. So yeah, just carry as much speed as possible into here while still being able to pick up the throttle and not use that curb. So the car's stable on the exit. And then this is quite a tricky one to spot, but we have our second part of the spoon curve now where we're braking again. And it's difficult to pick an exact reference here. However, I generally use the point where I'm just parallel with the white line, reach the edge of the track here. And you can see the car is relatively straight at this point and the track's almost straight. And it's very hard to judge, but you can see the second curve coming up. And it's one of those ones you're just going to have to practice and get a good feeling of, where you need to brake and carry speed and things like that. But generally for me, it's that when I feel like I've reached the edge of the track, and that's why it's so important to get the first part right. That's my cue to, okay, now I need to brake and start steering to the left part, the second part of the corner. So just soft brake down to third. We want to carry a decent amount of speed here, so we don't really want to brake heavily and slow the car down too much. It's super important with the light aero car like this. We're not really trying to take off all the speed. We're just trying to pitch the car gently into the corner and use all the downforce that we have and carry good mid-corner speed. So I'm coasting at this point and then gradually picking up the throttle to carry that mid-corner speed, and also for what's a really important exit as well. It's never worth pushing the entry in the second part of this corner. Always go for your exit here because the straight's so long and probably sets up the best overtaking opportunities on the track. Here, again, because we need a good exit, we need to try and look out for the exit curve quite early so we're aware of where it is. We want the right wheel to meet the red and white. If we are out wide too early and we put the middle of the car where the red and white is, you will bounce up, bottom out, again, possibly get floor damage, and it will definitely affect your exit as well. So we need to be really accurate with that. Make sure we get a good exit. Not much to say here, just kind of go in a straight line, reduce the scrub, minimize the steering, make sure we're on the right hand side of the track, and then again, smooth steering, use the camber through 130R. And we don't need to use all the track. The car won't push itself out wide. Maybe when you're following somebody, you're running very low downforce, you'll find yourself doing that. But with the fixed setup, there's no need. So we just go in a bit tight after we've gone around the corner and just hold a little bit of steering lock. Just make it one smooth turn. Just reduce the distance, get back to the left-hand side where we want to be anyway for the braking zone for the chicane. And then braking at the 100-meter board pretty much always, maybe a little bit later in some conditions, dead straight on the left-hand side of, you can see the orange cones up ahead. We should be left of that, and we'll be parallel with the white line here. And then the track kind of goes out a bit to the left and comes back in, but try not to move around too much with what the track's doing ahead. Just stay where you are and aim between the cone and the marshal's post. So dead straight into second gear. I personally don't like using a lot of curve here because car gets very upset once you put the floor of the car over the curb. So generally my rule for this chicane section is only put your your tires on the curb, so not to unsettle the car or get aero damage. So we're braking into here, second gear. I pick up a bit of throttle because I feel like it stabilizes the car. Obviously, if you try to go like 70-80% throttle, you're going to spin or upset the rear of the car. But if you're just applying a little bit, it does settle the car and it's better than just coasting. And obviously it helps pick up a little bit of speed as well. So I'd recommend doing that. And then we go to about 60-70% throttle through this section in the gap between the two, and then lift out. And again, that'll pitch the car forward, get more weight onto the nose, help it turn in for the left. And then again, we want to use, I use all the red and white, maybe sometimes the green, but generally if you use the green, you'll bottom out and it'll upset the car for the exit. So that's kind of, this is as much curb as you want to take generally. It's important to lift here to get the front end quite aggressively, but also don't fully lift out. Carry a bit of throttle if you can, because it'll make a big difference to, the speed you carry as well as the car, the speed you can get on the exit and the way the car's handling as well. Just a little bit of throttle, and as soon as we get off the curb and it's had its little wobble here, you can pick up the throttle because it's not so unstable, which is why it's important to carry a bit of throttle, because we need to carry that speed rather than trying to pick up throttle on the curb if we've gone in too slow, because if you do that, the car will spin or get upset. So yeah, once we've got all the rear wheels on the ground, we can pick up the throttle quite aggressively, use the exit curve, and then last thing is just get it right. Use less distance here and you'll find a bit of time. Thanks for watching this lap guide with the F3 car at Suzuka. If you found it helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave a like and comment on the video. Thanks for that, and see you next time.